April 3rd. I, Mary Dean, who have been designated as the Chair Pro Tem in the absence of our Chair, would like to call a meeting to order and acknowledge the other members here. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, which you have in front of you. And I hope you've been able to review. Are there any questions about the minutes we can answer?
They're excellent. That's not a question, it's a comment, but they're excellent.
Well, since I can't do the minutes and chair the meeting at the same time, no promises for next month.
I do have one question. I didn't remember the reference to Rex development. That's not part of SCROG, is it?
I can't answer that question. There was a lot of specific information given during the course of that meeting.
Yeah.
And I had to ask Kathy for some clarification for my notes. I myself wondered what that
Yeah.
reference was too, but we'll just have to wait to get it
Okay.
clarified. There's a lot of, as
A lot
you
of
know,
technical stuff, yeah.
a lot of agencies, a lot of consultants, a lot of connections, a lot of things. And we're just really lucky to have Kathy to help us understand what it all is. Also Ben.
Okay.
So when you're finished, if someone would like to
Yep.
make a motion,
I move that we accept the minutes.
thank you.
I'll second.
All in favor?
You've heard it.
Aye.
Is there any dissension? Any abstention? No. Okay, unanimous. Thank you. Public comment? No public members coming today, so we'll pass over that. And go to the chair's report. Kathy has provided this in writing. I actually have some copies of it, but Elaine will now give it to us for the record.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is the Chair's report dated April 3rd, 2024. Hope everyone had the chance to review the housing report to the Board of Selectmen on March 13th. YouTube that was preceded by public comment. I felt there was a good productive exchange with the Board of Selectmen. The public comment included a repeat of the issues, most of which I addressed in my subsequent report. There were also a number of misrepresentations, February minutes, other supportive public comments, state's proposed plan of conservation and development that will be addressed to the town prior to the next Board of Selectmen meeting. We will be participating in Woodbridge's Earth Celebration. The theme of our table will focus on two major categories of sustainable Connecticut, which is 1, efficient and diverse housing, and 2, effective, compassionate homelessness prevention. For homelessness prevention, I will be reaching out to my colleagues throughout the state to see if they could offer some handouts, poster boards, and recommendations for activities. This event runs from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Still not sure if the town will be applying to the Small Cities CDBG program. If they do, a Fair Housing Action Plan will need to be prepared, and I suggest that we provide guidance for this. It would need to be approved by the Board of Selectmen prior to the application submission that is due on May 31st, 2024. I did email the template out for this. And just a heads up that the Housing Committee will be part of the planning process for the town's update of its plan of conservation and development. This is a process that happens every 10 years. The update to the state is due on or before May 15th, 2025.
Okay.
I have one question.
Mm-hmm.
It notes in here, maybe I'm missing it, but it notes in here the time of the Earth Day event is 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., but it doesn't state the date.
It's April 27th.
April 27th, so we still have some time to prepare.
Yep.
Okay. I'll
Is
make
that
that
dinner?
amendment in minutes.
See, I've come.
Any other questions? Did you want to continue to talk about, oh, no, that's later.
Yeah.
Okay, good. We could segue into that anytime
Yeah.
you want to do so.
Do you want me to do that now?
Yeah, if no one has any more questions
We have
for.
to, do we have to
the-
approve this?
No, we do not. It's just a
Okay.
report.
Okay, so discussion of Housing Committee's report to the Board of Selectmen. So, Mary and I were there. If you're listening, Kathy, we thought you did a remarkably good job. I listened to the whole thing again today. She is exactly 2 hours and 17 minutes into the YouTube presentation. So she started out by talking about the fact that she was proud of our report, proud of the fact that we got it in on time, although many municipalities didn't. She said that it was reviewed and approved by Connecticut housing and planning experts, and that as a group, we tried very hard to be transparent, noting that people remarked that it was too long to read, but she had great explanations for that we were trying to be transparent and just include all the information that went into making that report, including surveys, our own survey, the survey from SCROG, input from residents, and anything that went into making the report. She urged people to read it, but if it was too long, all 96 pages, to go to the goals and strategies, because that presented a really good summary of what we were trying to do. So then she went on to explain that this housing committee was formed in September of '22. Is that correct? I think that would be correct. September of 20?
Not 22, because.
Oh, no,
The report went in.
the report went in on '22.
Yeah,
Right.
so it was actually done in the winter before, wasn't
Yes.
it?
Oh, you know what? I meant September 22nd, but that's not the year. I didn't mean it as the year. Noting that there's, as we all know, an extreme shortage of housing throughout Connecticut. I think the figure she gave was that we are short 169,000 units of housing throughout Connecticut. And that Woodbridge is clearly lacking safe, affordable housing. She defined affordable housing and the criteria for it, I thought, very clearly and succinctly. I'm supposed to, probably shouldn't be editorializing, but she reviewed the state median income and people in town who might be affected by that median income. She noted that a high percentage of Woodbridge residents are cost burdened. In fact, 63% of people who rent are cost burdened, meaning they're spending more than 30% of their monthly income on rent. And I forget the figure for homeowners. It was lower, but still significant,
Yes.
surprisingly significant. She talked about our priorities of this current committee is number one, resident education, reviewing existing zoning regulations, amending the plan of conservation to align with affordable housing plan, creating incentive housing zones, encouraging middle options, creating programs for housing rehab for homeowners. She also talked about the various experts that have been invited to this committee to enlighten all of us. Reviewed our community conversations and Ben Fink's role in those community conversations. Talked about the importance of a town planner, the importance of creating a welcoming environment for developers, importance of coordination among various Woodbridge committees, Hello, hi. And the need for professional guidance, the importance of being mindful of the greenway, open space, conservation, expanding infrastructure, looking at privately owned property, and the importance of utilizing many strategies, not just focusing on the Country Club of Woodbridge. I'm going over Kathy's report from the Board of Selectmen meeting. The Board of Selectmen seemed engaged, asked really good questions, and one of the questions that came up was, is it necessary for our original plan to be revised to address certain issues that needed to be stated more accurately? Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm representing correctly? Mika, open to it, noting the importance of gathering information, asking questions, and deciding how to move forward with consensus. I think that is, basically the structure of it. Anything else important to add?
The chair would recognize Mika Cardozo, who's entered the room, in case he would like to contribute to the meeting, as he has a couple of times in the past. If you'd like to make a comment, you're welcome to do so, but please do not feel any obligation.
I thought it was extraordinarily useful in terms of, can you hear me or no? I thought it was particularly useful that Kathy presented the way that she did. It really instilled a lot of dialogue and discussion in terms of our housing plan generally speaking. A lot of the questions were specific to the plan. There was a lot of discussion in terms of changes, as you said, Elaine, as relates to particular items. Demographics were maybe not specific enough to Woodbridge, and we would want to make that adjustment going forward, so that whatever information we use or is part of that is very, very specific to what we're doing, what's happening here. But generally speaking, it was significantly longer. If you were watching, you saw that it was, we discussed it for the better part of 45 minutes to an hour, if I'm not
for sure.
mistaken. And I thought it was great dialogue. It was just folks asking questions, getting answers. Kathy was able to answer it. There's so much that we feel can be done. And she outlined a lot of what, how important it was to do that. And we also, I think, addressed some of the concerns where this is a living it's a dynamic document. It's not meant to be, a static type of a document where you don't make the changes as you go along. The POCD is a process we're going to be going through for the next year. This is going to be a very important part of that. And so we will be adjusting, adapting, correcting, whatever we need to do as we go along those lines. So I was very pleased with the fact that she presented, and I was very pleased with the reaction of the selectmen in terms of the questions that they answered. I mean, we're getting engaged. We're
Yeah.
starting to understand. We're starting to recognize what needs to be done. So Elaine and Mary, you were here, so you heard a lot of it. There was, or was that the other time? No, you were here.
No, we were
we're
both
here.
there.
Yeah.
We were both there. We both listened to
Yeah.
it again today
Yeah.
to refresh our memory.
So, and prior to it, there was some public comment and there was some criticism in terms of what has been done. But I do feel we're, from my perspective, there's never been any indication that we wouldn't, if there's something wrong, we wouldn't correct it, or that we wouldn't adapt or anything along those lines. So, if there's things that people don't agree with, bring it. Let us know, and we'll do what we need to do with it. And what I felt at the time, and what I'll say here, not just because I'm sitting here, but I thank the committee for doing the work that you've done. And there's still more to do, I know. And the other thing that came up is was asked very directly in terms of the potential of the committee becoming a commission, and that's something we are most certainly looking at, because I do feel the work that you're doing is work that we need to do consistently in order to be successful at it. And in what and I think that's one of the ways we can demonstrate that that's the case, and we can keep it going. So,
Great, thank you.
What would the difference between a commission obviously lasts longer, but what other differences are there between a committee and a commission?
that's about it. In reality, the committee should be operating the exact same way that a commission does, from a just an operational standpoint. But generally, the committee is formed for a more temporary type of activity or action, whereas a commission is something that will just perpetuate. And the biggest thing is really a committee, we don't have an ordinance specific to a committee, where with a commission, it's part of your ordinance. So it becomes law, it becomes an ordinance. That's the biggest, tangible difference, if you will. But aside from that, operationally, you do what you do.
When I was looking at it again and thinking, of course, we've had exposure to this same set of circumstances for quite a long time now, where individuals have concerns that they express, and of course we respect people's concerns and want to address them. It is difficult to do that in the stricture of the freedom of information and I guess Robert's rules or whatever is preventing us from interacting during a meeting formally with people who are bringing thoughts and concerns to us. Is there any way around that? Can we, I know that we're not allowed to meet with people outside of the structure of the committee for the same reason that you wouldn't do it if you were a commission.
I don't know that that's all necessarily the case.
Oh, good.
For example, if you have constituents, you have residents who are interested in finding out and you wanted to get their input or they wanted to get your input, there's no freedom of information restriction that would prevent you from doing that I'm aware of at all. Even from the perspective, if you wanted to collaborate amongst yourselves, you can do that, provided you never do it in a situation where there might be a quorum. And a lot of the Freedom of Information Act is obviously put forth to stop backroom deals, discussions, things of that nature. So there's a lot you need to be careful with in terms of what you're doing. But generally speaking, it's from a public standpoint, that's what we should be doing in reality, from my perspective.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, it is good to know.
One of the things that you can't, as a committee, under the auspices of being the committee, for example, I can't host an event, if you will, specifically to discuss committee business with a whole bunch of other people.
Right.
That's a meeting.
That's
That's a meeting. So, you can't, but if you're at an event or you're out to dinner or somebody, something along those lines, yeah, you can have the discussions that you want. At the grocery store, somebody stops you and wants to talk to you about what's happening with the commission, by all means, or committee, excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
So-
One-on-one.
Right, or
But-
even 1-on-3 or whatever
Yeah.
it might be. It's not, you don't want to set up anything from an official standpoint where it appears that you're conducting committee business outside of the public forum, is really what it boils down to. And from my perspective, from everything that I know.
Right. I mean, of
And if
course-
there's any questions, there's that gentleman, Russell Blair. Just reach out to him. Just literally just give him a call and ask him what you're thinking, and he'll, or, our attorneys are the same way. We
Yeah,
can
yeah.
just ask me, and we can ask the attorneys if it's something that we don't know the answer for ourselves.
Or we could we put it on the agenda, for example, and have it as part of the committee? It's just public comment that we can't comment back on, right?
And it's not that you can't, it's a policy.
It's policy.
It's a policy that we've engaged in primarily because that leads to, sometimes it leads to escalation, and it can deteriorate into something more. But you can, for example, if somebody brings up public comment in your next meeting, you can make a point to address that.
Yeah, we do.
You know what I mean? So that type of thing there, and it's generally up to, the individual commission or committee to determine how they want to handle public comment. But experience has shown that it's probably best not to necessarily address everything however, for example, I know on the Board of Selectmen, if something comes up in public comment that's simply not true, we'll correct it. So so if it's, but if it's subjective, it's somebody's opinion, somebody's stating their opinion,
it's
there's
not
really
their
no,
opinion,
right,
yeah.
there's really no reason to comment on that. But if somebody says, the committee said X, Y, Z, and you didn't, then there's no reason to say, no, just for the record, we'd like to correct that that's not the case.
But if it's not hurting anybody, don't bother with it for the time being.
There's always a time and a place.
It's a complicated subject, and it's a sensitive one that we're dealing with here. So we're used to
Yeah,
this set of circumstances, but it is, of course, very frustrating because one of our jobs is to try to educate the public correctly.
very, very
And
important.
hopefully to bring them along with
Yeah.
our thinking about what needs to have attention and, to a degree, how we should go about answering questions that we have about what to do next.
It's a significant problem. It does have some sensitivity to it, obviously, but, from my perspective, the more open we are with the discussion that we have to have on it, the more mainstream it becomes, and I think it becomes less controversial, as exactly what you said, Mary, in terms of the better you educate, the more people understand about it, I believe the less sensitive it will become. People have a tendency, many people still think of it as you say affordable housing, they think of public housing, they think of Section 8, they think of a lot of other things. A friend of mine actually put it into perspective by saying, years ago, they used to call it starter homes
Oh,
for young people. You know what I mean? Towns
Yeah.
had what people knew to be starter homes. They were less expensive in places where it's smaller, less expensive places where you could, you and your wife could, maybe you had one bedroom or two bedrooms with the baby, and that was it. But you could afford
Right.
to live in the town because they had starter homes.
And it was no big deal.
And it was not a big deal. And it was, and a lot of times people just don't realize that that's exactly what we're talking about, because that doesn't exist. And I say that from my experience with my daughter. She lives out in California, my God. And,
Oh, boy.
And right, it's like there's no way a young couple can afford to buy a home. Particularly if you're a teacher, which he is, and he's a coach. They're both teachers. It's just not feasible. So it's. I just saw when they said that, it really resonated with me, because it's like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I remember when we were younger, and that's what we looked for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
our first house in Hampton was $28,000 for a lovely little raised ranch.
right, right.
It was wonderful.
And that's truly that's what's missing in our,
Yeah.
And there were two, it's funny, it's both ends of the spectrum. It's usually young couples or young people, and it's also the older generation
Yes.
who wants to downsize.
Yes.
And if that housing stock is missing, you've got to do something about that. That's because it's painful. And that's what we're experiencing.
And if you don't, you don't get influx of new people, and you get an exodus of people who got nowhere, there's
Nowhere else to go.
So they go to some other place.
And when they do, they're leaving 3 and 4 bedroom houses on, a lot of land, and families are justifiably are moving in.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of the influx in terms of the growth, but you're not retaining
Yeah.
those seniors. If they had a place to stay in town, you're retaining those taxes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they just
Absolutely.
And
those
that
are the people you want in town. They
community
want to be here,
knowledge. Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
right.
People
So-
who really care about the community because they have experience here.
So.
Yeah.
So there's ways, and I think as people more and more understand what we're actually looking to accomplish, I think it becomes more and more feasible. But
One hopes.
one hopes.
Anybody else have any questions or comments or anything?
I do have a
Just
couple
like
more
that.
minutes. Miles, well, thank you for being here.
I also thought it was interesting and productive, as we all remember, as we were frantically putting that report together over many months, there was, criticism that I understood that the Board of Selectmen had only about a week.
Right. To look
But
at
as
it.
Kathy explained it, and I thought it was a productive conversation, we did it in chunks and bits and pieces and sections, posting for the whole town to see. But it is true that when it was finally finished, I think the Board of Selectmen basically had about a week and, wanted to approve it to meet the deadline that we were given. But I think it was a good conversation that promoted understanding about how that all went down.
I agree, Elaine, because I
Yeah.
didn't realize, I didn't recognize, and I do realize, I'm very sensitive also to getting a 94-page document that I've got to vote on in, a few
Sure.
days. And that's, in one sense, you look at it and that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really enlightening for Kathy to bring up the fact that may be true, but there was constant communication over the different elements of the project prior to that. It's just that a deadline meant that we needed to put it together and get it to a certain point by a certain time.
Yeah.
So I thought that was,
That
again,
was good, and
the more people understand about what's going on, the more dialogue you have about it, the more I just think it's what's needed in
Yeah.
order for us to get through a lot of the difficult, particularly the difficult topics.
I have one concern.
Please.
And obviously,
what do you make
if
it
there's anything
sense, Roy?
wrong
What
in
are you
our
doing
report,
over
we
there?
should correct it.
I agree.
But what I'm concerned about is it's become prevalent in national politics to delay. Delay is a good thing. And I don't want to get involved with, if we didn't dot an I or cross a T, if it's something substantive, we should correct
Right.
it. But I don't want to be going through 96 pages and rewriting it and delaying this for years, because that doesn't serve anybody's purpose.
Oh, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. And I think what we need to do is, as I say, that I think it's fortunate from our perspective that POCD is happening as it's happening,
Yeah.
because it will make us relook and and make sure that what everything that's in there is appropriate for the next 10 years. You know what I mean? Because it's not just okay, we want to get this done in the next couple of years, but it's something that's got long range. So I think there'll be a lot more eyes on it. So
One thing that frustrates me is any notion that this report came down from Mount Sinai and was etched in stone and can't be changed. It's a report.
Right.
It's what we learned, what could be applicable, and what we recommended should be looked at first and considered most strongly. And a lot of the demographic and other kinds of information in there is arguably it's neither here nor there when it comes to the actual
right.
facts of the matter, what we need to do, why we need to do it. That's just frustrating me. It seems like you're putting up this barrier and thinking about the barrier, whether the document itself has failures or strengths or whatever, and not talking about the issue, which is what we really have to get down to
And
brass
that's
tacks
actually,
about.
that's a great point from my perspective, because what I'd like us to do now is see what we need, how do we implement some of what we feel is necessary. And that's what I'd like to spend our energy on, not necessarily looking back and figuring it out, but, again, it's a dynamic document. You keep making sure that it's correct and adapting it to what your current needs are. But I think the most important thing we can do at this point in time is to start looking to implement some of the recommendations in a way that we actually start moving toward a goal that's been set, or that we set ourselves in terms of what we want to do.
I think Kathy mentioned during her presentation, did she not, a conversation that we had with a professional presenter on this subject. That was a public meeting, after which we went up to him and we said, what can we do? What can we do? What do you recommend that we do to improve our situation? And he said, do something, do anything, something like that.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was very striking. Just do something, show that you're trying. And that's what we're trying to do.
I've got a personal commitment to that in terms of exactly just taking steps toward a goal. And as I say, and I'm particularly sensitive to it, having gone through the whole campaign process, having knocked on a lot of doors during the day, people who are retired and telling me that they're looking for places outside of town to move to, specifically because there's no place in town that that they feel meets their particular needs, and it's just an opportunity from our perspective to correct, to make it better, and keep those people who have been in our town for so long, keep them in our town. They want to be near their friends as much as anybody, so.
As I've been saying from day one here, if we don't do something, somebody else will, and I feel much more comfortable with the Board of Selectmen doing something here than people who haven't even entered Woodbridge.
Right.
So would everyone, I think
Yes.
that's
The
a
other-
common issue.
One thing I think we should all recognize is that it's sort of both an iterative and sort of process that may have to be reconsidered as we go along. And for example, we may think it might be a good idea to do something, but as an economic matter, you've got to get developers to get involved in some of this. And if it's just not economically feasible, we can't necessarily discern that. We don't have a divining rod that's going to tell us whether that's, when it becomes a reality and we find out that that's not going to work, then we have to be willing to be flexible.
It's a whole nother level of challenges.
Well, that's
that
right.
we're going to have to meet. And it's another reason to be pleased that we have a new member of our committee who's been working in development for some time. So together with
Really
others,
important.
others with whom we have associations or membership.
But certainly there continues to be, actually, a lot of examples we can learn from. In other towns like us, and other towns around us, and in other towns
Yeah.
not near us, in Fairfield County and places like that,
Mm-hmm.
that have done some really great things that we can learn from. We don't have to create the wheel, we don't have to, we don't have to be the first to do something of whatever it is. So.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure we stay objective enough to expand our view in terms of where and how we can do these things in our town. So,
Yeah.
remain on. So thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for
Thanks for
participating.
coming.
Thank you, Mika.
Thanks, Mika.
Thank you.
Another sidebar I would add to what I saw today in reviewing some of the material that was online is a reference made during public comment to the new, currently being drafted state plan of
Yes.
conservation and development, which I looked at briefly online and I recommend to you all. There's a separate section on housing, so you can zero in on that. And you will find, I just looked at it briefly, but I think you will find that plan of conservation and development in the development section is saying a lot of things that we have been saying about where to concentrate your development in order to respect and reserve as much open space as possible.
Where exactly is that accessible?
I can send you the link. I will do that.
Thank
I'll
you.
send everyone the link to that. I just Googled it. It was really easy to find. It's not
It's
in
an
its final
assumption.
form.
Hmm?
It's not in its final form.
Yeah.
It was just posted on March 1st in its current draft form. And it's taking public comment through the summer, I think, and then will be posted officially in September. It's pretty general. It's one of these kinds of
Sure.
documents. But it's good to know that, as you might not otherwise be aware, that it's conservation and development, not just conservation.
We had that discussion a couple of meetings ago, or maybe it was as many as 3 ago, that we really had to try to coordinate, the housing, conservation,
They all have to work
planning,
together.
and zoning, it's all part of the
It's all
same.
connected.
Because you can't really move forward ultimately and take, action without, without it working for everybody to some degree.
That's true, and also if we're going to get the maximum amount of public support for making any kind of change, you have to make as many people comfortable with the decisions as
Yeah.
possible. That comes from information, I hope. I hope it can be resolved with increased amounts of information. I don't know whether it comes under 4 or 5, discussion of Housing Committee's report or planning for the town's Earth Day event. But in our email communications from Kathy. She did send a couple of additional things. I guess it's Earth Day, is it Earth Day?
I think it would be related to Earth Day, yeah.
And also her work plan, which isn't, I think, that would be related to the CDBG application. I don't see that here on the agenda.
agenda, yeah, I mean-
We're not, there's no need for us to address
Okay.
it right now.
Okay,
But
I
I
have
would
it,
just
but- make
make note for your information that she did send that. It's that housing, what's it called here? It is the Sample Fair Housing Action Plan template. And it shows you what information we would have to provide in what format if we were going to apply for CDBG funds. So it's 55 pages, so my point here is just to let you know to work it into your day as convenient. But I think being familiar with its extent and the kinds of questions that it's asking, it would be really helpful. And I
how
personally
it-
was finding difficult to get it into my day, so I thought I'd mention it to you all.
this is generated by which group, this?
This is the
Work-
Fair Housing, this is from the Department of Housing.
Okay,
This one looks,
oh, that one, okay.
yes,
see what
you've
that
got
looks
it in
like,
your
yeah.
email. It's in your email.
Yep, I'm having trouble with it
Yeah,
these
I know.
days.
Yes, I hear so.
Till Tuesday.
Is there anything I could do to help you?
No, Tuesday I'll be able to do it.
Okay. I mean, I was trying to find all this stuff desperately to see what we had received and whether I
Yeah, I
looked
know.
at
I
it myself. And
Kept
sometimes
looking
it's
back
hard
at
to
our
do that.
instructions.
It's hard to do that in all the emails, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's shift over to Elaine again for the Earth Day event.
Yeah, so we're going to have a table. I did reach out to Jennifer Sullivan today because I believe she's in charge of,
You want to pass that down to Miles? I don't think he's seen it before. And the point is that, that the Sustainability Committee, this is the State Sustainable Action Plan, part of it. And Kathy noticed that there's a good bit of overlap between these two things and thought that it would be highly appropriate for us to have a table at the town sustainability event in order to address two aspects of the sustainability document.
and I'm looking for the two. One was homelessness, and I guess the other one was just lack of affordable housing, but I can't remember how they worded it. I did have it. It should be in the Sustainable Connecticut report, no? Well, it's homelessness and,
So much stuff.
I know. I think it was homelessness for sure, and the other one must have been lack of affordable housing. So Kathy was going to reach out to people she knew involved in different organizations to see if she could gather posters and handouts and flyers that we could put on our table. And then she had suggested when we talked last week, activities for children. You know, I guess for a couple of reasons. Ideally to promote awareness as if a 6 or 7 or an 8-year-old is really going to tune into the issue, but maybe just to keep them busy while we were talking to their parents,
Those things is to get parents' attention.
to get the parents' attention.
Right, to give them a chance, keep people busy while they.
Yeah, so Kathy said she got online and found lots of templates for housing things that kids could color. I got online, and today
Did you get
these.
them today?
Yeah, I got them today, and you know what? There's good stuff in here. I think we have to there's 3 little activity books pertaining to housing. This is my favorite. Slide and Find, What's in My House? But it would certainly appeal to a younger child. I'll bring coloring supplies, unless I'm going to be in Vermont, but I'll leave it with somebody. And
Cool.
and somehow I'm going to devise a cute little game, a guessing game pertaining to housing. I haven't quite formulated it yet, but I will think of something. I work with kids, I should be able to come up with something. So Kathy asked that, that we, whoever can show up that day to help, it goes from 10 to 3. And Kathy will be there part of the day. If I'm in the state of Connecticut, I will definitely be there part of the day. Mary, I don't know if you're going to be around, or Lou, Jim, Miles.
I'll have to ask
April
Karen.
27th.
On that. I think I'm around.
Yeah, just so that Kathy doesn't have to be there all day by
I'll try to-
herself.
How many I have never attended this event. How many people have come in years past? Does anybody know?
I don't know that I've ever
I
been
don't
to
think
one,
there's ever
or
been one
have they
for-
Oh,
done?
okay.
For
On a nice day, a lot of
sustainability.
people come.
Earth Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Historical Society had already planned an open house for that day, which will work out nicely for Earth Day because it's farms and recycling and all that
Yeah.
stuff down on Litchfield Turnpike. But we are also going to have a table.
Oh, okay,
So I'd
so-
be kind of split between the two. We have,
Okay.
anybody want to help the Historical Society, that'd be really good too, because we've got 3 things going on and we need people to help.
Do they provide the table, or is that something we have to provide? That's what I wanted to ask Jennifer
They-
about today.
Yeah, they have some tables, and I'm not remembering which organization this was, but I think they were a little slow in getting back to us about whether we had a table or not.
Okay.
So I wouldn't count on it. Kathy was also reaching out to some of her other contacts to see if there were any kind of display materials and signs and that kind of thing that would be helpful. But if we can think of anything that would be helpful, that would
Yep.
be good. It's good for us to be there.
So if you come up with any creative ideas for Earth Day, just jump in, let us know.
Yeah, you'll probably get some more stuff in emails as thoughts start to percolate down about it, questions and so forth.
Yeah.
But participating in public events is really an important thing to do, if only to give people
Sure.
a chance to ask us questions.
Yeah.
What's the goal of this event?
Well, it's the Sustainability Committee, which is a committee like ours, is really focused on recycling and things like that. So for us to be there, or for the Historical Society to be there, you might say is something of a stretch, because it has to connect with that idea. I think that they have their agenda and they want to encourage people to participate in that kind of activity. But we don't have enough stuff going on to get together in Woodbridge anyway, so people tend to come out and see what's happening, especially if it's near the library. So 10 to 3 is a long time, though.
It is a long time.
I don't know how that's really going to work out.
Here you go.
Recycle houses. ADA, maybe we could get the ADA thing out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, that little report that I wrote, and Kathy, or perhaps you,
I never got it.
yeah, I never sent it to you, but I have the rough draft here somewhere, but Kathy did edit it, and, we sent it over to Allison, and she was, it hasn't come out anywhere, so I'll follow up on that. I don't know what happened to it. I thought it was quite a lovely report on ADUs, because one of the people that attended last month's meeting was talking about tiny houses, and, it ties in with the ADUs, and it is really a good option under many circumstances. And according to Chris Sullivan, when I talked to her, there's been quite a bit of interest, because now, the new zoning regulations say that we can have an ADU on
Yeah.
any property.
And it doesn't have to be close family relatives.
No,
No,
No, it
they really
doesn't.
loosened it out.
Yeah.
There's,
Did we actually add to that report what the regulation is now? What the,
let me see if it was in the original version.
You know, what interests me about ADUs and any district, and in this case Woodbridge, is when you have an enlarged option like this, if we could just get an example, as one has many examples of other sets of circumstances relating to housing and its implementation, but if we could find out what really happens in a community when ADUs are really a viable option, as they weren't here before those recent changes. How many people really implement them? Is it a realistic expectation that it's going to have a significant impact on housing?
You know, I think the need is more acute now than it has ever been. Okay?
That's a good point.
So it wouldn't surprise me if it was more utilized than you think, but it's still, it's still small groups.
Yeah.
You're not
Doesn't
going to
it-
get 10% of your population is all of a sudden to live in accessory dwelling units. I think that's unrealistic.
The numbers.
The only thing I see, did you ask about the regulations?
Uh-huh.
In my second paragraph, Woodbridge is one of the towns which opted into PA 2129, the zoning regulations which authorize the use of ADUs. The majority of towns in Connecticut opted out, often because they already had zoning regulations describing the use and parameters of ADUs. This means that Woodbridge essentially follows the guidelines that are explained in the above-mentioned 2021 Public Act. This legislation has been described as an important step towards a more affordable, sustainable, and economically dynamic state, and it marks the first significant update to the state's Zoning Enabling Act in decades. That's from Desegregate Connecticut. With this act, Connecticut became the 8th state to enact state-level legislation for accessory apartments with clear guidelines. So, I had done some research and listed all the benefits of it, and then Kathy did some editing and sent it in. So I don't think I ever saw the final version, but there, I was surprised. I mean, lots of things that I didn't think of. Do you want to hear some of the advantages?
Well, I don't know if we need to take the time for everybody unless you're all interested. I was just thinking that this would be a very interesting thing to highlight at our table.
Yes.
That people might want to have more information, and the more we
Yeah, I
can
can
give
make
them,
a
See
the
your
better.
list?
I can make a poster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love making posters.
Speed reading.
I had drawn like a small thing.
Oh, let's see.
Just the
Ta-da.
little picture of Earth with the house over it.
Oh, I love this. I love this. Can I pass it around?
Yeah, sure.
Whoops, sorry. Keep doing that.
Oh, I love that. That's great.
Isn't that great?
home, the home we all share.
I love that.
Oh,
I
good.
feel like maybe
Can you make a poster?
yeah, I
Very nice.
That's nice,
I
isn't
feel
it?
like maybe
Yeah.
what's important to stress, at least in regards to sustainability, is mainly that affordable housing can be sustainable as well, and also as the purpose of Earth Day is really that we're all unified in the aim to save Earth, and I guess the purpose of saving Earth is that it is our home, and I guess that's the connection to homes, that if we all deserve a clean home to live in, that's our planet, then why shouldn't we also give each individual a clean home to live in as well?
It's beautiful.
You're on the right track here.
Well said. Wow.
Okay, you're in charge. This is something you learned fairly early on. You have a good idea. You get to be in charge. No, of course I'm joking with you. But I know Kathy will want to talk to you about this more because she and Elaine are developing this table.
Yeah.
With support from any of the rest of us that
Yes,
you can
whoever-
give that you
whoever
need.
can
That would be great. That's
Help us out.
Yeah, wonderful. be proud to be at that table, however, I can, whenever I get
You
away.
can't be in two places at once.
Well, are you kidding? You're kidding. Okay, anything else to discuss? Any new business, any old business? New business, old business? We're good?
Nope.
Okay. Keep those cards and letters coming and watch your email.
Great. I move to adjourn.
Thank you. A second? Lou. Okay, we're adjourning at 7:56.